Looking at the clock on the room wall, it is 1:30. Welcome all. We will start with the roll call. Eric Bobby. Kate Summons. Stephen Booth.
Here.
Kit Brown.
Here.
Eric Barnsdale. I'm present. Turnip Seed.
Present.
Peter Oliver.
Here.
And Mike Ward. Brian, do we have anybody online?
We do not.
Okay. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum, so we will start with the minutes of the last meeting of September 22. Chair will ask for either a motion and a second or comments by any of the members regarding the minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would move approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
A motion, is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Stephen. Comments, questions, changes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes of September 22 are approved. The next one is the ACHD Transportation Framework. And who's going to do this? I'm sorry, you snuck in behind me.
I did. It was
You're
intentional.
very, very quiet.
That I have never been accused of being quiet.
Just work.
I just was.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I talk pretty loud, so I don't know if I actually need I was gonna say. So good afternoon all. So my name is Christy Genselman. I'm the planning supervisor here at Ada County Highway District in the long range planning division. And it's through this group that we develop a lot of the long range plans that kind of feed into everything else. So I was asked to come today and kind of give a high level how some of those plans work within each other. So I don't have a lot of slides, just a few high level slides, but I figured we can have more conversation and just questions about how those work.
And I might comment, this is in response to a request at the last meeting
Yes.
that I believe Steve made. Okay.
Yes, about how it all works together,
Yeah.
how they feed into each other. Yes. So ACHD has a programming framework. It shows it all feeds into the 5-year plan, but there's a lot that goes into the decision making and into our long range plans. So it starts with the city's comprehensive plans where they set the land use vision for their area. That feeds into the motion. So our travel demand model, demographics, and then into ACHD's strategic plan. And then you can see all those little arms that come off of that. So those are all the plans that then feed into the 5-year. And 2 of those plans are the master street map and the CIP. And those kind of work in conjunction with each other. As well as other plans that we developed. You saw we had the ADA transition plan, bike master plan. So ACHD's master street map, we update this plan every 3 years. And this is the entire arterial network and collector network. And it's a guiding document for development and for the plans that it feeds into. So this will set the typology of each of those roadways. And again, this is tied to what those land uses are, what the anticipated growth is going to occur in those cities and the county. So that feeds into that information. But this also helps, this is also utilized on the development side. You have a new development, where are those collector roadways identified? And that's where the collectors are built through. It helps to guide that growth. And then the master street map, it will set right of way width, and it'll set number of lanes on that arterial network. And that does help feed into the CIP. But the CIP is also a little bit independent of that. It starts with that, but all the traffic, as you guys have heard throughout this whole process, travel demand models, and that will dictate the number of lanes and the needs within the CIP itself. And the CIP, I believe you guys have also heard, every 5 years it has to be, but we're on a 4-year cycle. The ACHD updates the capital improvement plan. And in the capital improvement plan, it'll also set forecasted needs for those roadways. And that helps inform which projects make it into the 5-year plan. I know I'm kind of going fast. There's a lot that they all work together. So the 5-year plan, interactive map, that's an annual update that we do. And this is how we dictate the capital, the allocation of our capital funds to do roadway improvements, intersections, bike ped, maintenance. A lot of that gets done under the 5-year plan. And so CIP roads, that's one of the things that I look at is I look at CIP. What is the forecasted need for these roads? What is the level of service of these roads? And is it time for them to move into the plan and start moving up? In addition to all the other prioritization that goes into deciding which projects move forward. And I wasn't sure how deep you guys wanted to go into this, because we're just talking 5-year, because that is something that also gets developed out of our group. We do have a project prioritization methodology that we utilize to help make decisions on which projects make it into the plan. But it's not solely based on this. There's a lot of factors that go into that: geographic equity, funding availability, type of needs, and it can shift year to year based on that. So we do prioritize and rank our road and intersection projects. Those are our CIP projects. Based on this criteria, it's a 100-point scale. We also will rank our what we call our safety and compliance projects now. And so those are like your bikeway improvements, your sidewalk, your crossings, things of that nature. And they're similar, but they're both at 100-point scale. You'll see some commonality between the two of them with regards to partner agency support, distance to schools, average age of track, but other than that, they do change a little bit. And that does help inform which ones we do. And I threw this is how long it takes for a project to get done in there. So typically it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 years for a project to go through all phases. It just depends on what level they need to go through. So our group we also do concept studies where if there is a corridor that we know is a more difficult corridor, or we need to determine a final treatment. An example would be Locust Grove, Fairview to Ustick. Right now, we're doing a concept study because the original plan was 3, the city wants 5. So we need to go out and see what does that look like and what is the preferred treatment for that corridor. So a concept can take anywhere from a year to 18 months to do. Same for design. It can take a year to 18 months, and then right away also. So there's all these phases to an actual project construction. So a lot of times with the 5-year, you're only going to see a portion of that in the plan because it's longer than the plan to get those done. And some even longer. It just depends on how much right of way and whatnot that we need to actually acquire, which is land in order to build the project. An example of that would be, we did Locust Grove concept study, Pine to Ustick. For that to go to 5 lanes, we're going to be buying out 35 homes. And so that is a long-term right-of-way acquisition project. So that will take even longer. And then I also threw up there some capital budget revenue sources. So this is what we look at when we're doing the 5-year plan each year. Again, all of those feed into that. And where do we get funding from? We get them from property taxes, sales tax, highway distribution fund, vehicle registration fee. That's tied specifically to registering your vehicles. And that one actually has a sunset coming up. Impact fees, which you guys are talking about now. And as we get more impact fees, we can do a little bit more projects wise. We also have a dedicated staff that goes for federal aid and grant funding, and then any state allocations that they so choose to give to us. Recent ones would be Ustick Corridor. We got additional funding from the state to finish Ustick out to the State Highway 16 in Franklin, and we just got another allocation again to work on Linder, Chinden State, to finish out Franklin, and a few other projects. So that's where the funding comes for the capital state. And I know I jumped through, so I'm happy to go back through all of those. I like this slide because it does kind of show how everything works in tandem and feeds into each other.
So since I kind of drove this, I'll at least start with my question. So first of all, thank you very much. It's
Of
very
course.
helpful to me. Maybe everyone else in the room knew all this, but I did. So, yeah, I wanted you to go to this slide. So the way I would read that is it's kind of the process, the planning process starts with the city and county comprehensive plans. That's what's on the far left. And then those strategic directions flow into communities in motion. And then from out of that comes the ACHD plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the cities will develop a future land use map that says for
Yeah.
our area, this is how we anticipate the entire city growing and at these densities and at these uses.
Yeah.
And that data helps feed the communities in motion and that demographic and the travel demand. Say, okay, well, they think it's gonna be industrial here. And so we know that industrial generates X number of trips, so we can generate that. Or this is a R20 high density residential. And we know at that density, it's gonna generate this number of trips. So the road capacity is then looked at based on that.
Okay, so obviously the city and county plans are underneath the city and county
Correct.
leadership and their structure. ACHD is under there. Who oversees communities in motion?
That's Compass.
Compass.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Did I get that wrong? You just looked at
No.
me. I was like, I swear it's Compass.
Chris, you do three,
Yes.
three sentences on explaining Compass.
It's the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Treasure Valley area.
so it's greater than
It
the
is.
county.
It is.
Okay. And do they take into account, for example, not only transportation demand, but new transportation technologies that are coming, such as self-driving cars?
And that is a question. That's probably a better question for Ed.
You're
He's our in-house modeler. So
Well, yes and no. I think they recognize the use of those type of the growth of that transportation modes, like connected vehicles nowadays. But I don't think it has been inputted into the model yet. I think it is something that it is a developed technology that's currently, that it varies, depends on the region that's being analyzed. Like for example, California, you're probably gonna see it more impactful than what you would see here in the region of Ada County. Certainly it's a growing industry, and as time goes on, probably it's gonna be applied more and more into their planning and strategies.
And just one more question on Compass. So Compass, I'm not that familiar with them. So are they an independent body with their own taxing authority? Who are they?
they're not a taxing authority.
They are an independent body.
They are an
They're
independent
not a
body,
taxing
yes.
authority. And I'm not sure exactly how they're funded.
I think I can probably answer that.
Okay,
Several hands went up.
You want me to? Yeah, so they're formed through a joint powers agreement
Yeah.
from land use and transportation authorities in the Treasure Valley. So they have a policy board which consists of representatives from the city of Boise, ACHD, ITD, etc. And they essentially guide. There's like 20 plus members on the policy board, and they guide Compass's transportation planning efforts.
Okay.
And the reason we have them is due to federal regulations. So,
Population size.
yeah,
correct?
there's a federal regulation that any metropolitan area over a certain size,
50,000.
50,000, we're much past it. That's why Compass
Way
has been
past it,
around
yeah.
30 years or more, I think. Must form this regional metropolitan planning organization. And so they are started with federal, they do have a large portion of federal funds. And one of their main purposes is the distribution of federal funding through transportation. That's one of the main purposes they serve.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of the funding that we go after goes through that organization and they distribute. And it goes to a bunch of different agencies that ask for it. So it goes through them as well.
I would like to add in the following, as part of the law that requires it to be in place. If you don't have a metropolitan planning association and you're over 50,000, then the transportation plan for the whole area does not get any federal aid. it's the primary criteria for getting federal aid for our system. That you have to have one of these.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects we wouldn't be able to do without federal funding.
And they don't just look at cars and streets and highways. They just finished a 2-year study of rapid transit across the valley, looking at buses that would run on the edge of the interstate, for example, or what were the others, using some of the main thoroughfares. They ended up selecting what amounts to commuter rail, not using the existing rail line between Caldwell and Boise, which where they settled after they started with what, 6, I think, different
They had a bunch, yeah.
possibilities that they narrowed down with public meetings, research, their board, so forth. And that just came out in the last month.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Could we get these slides?
Of course, yeah. And I can send links to all of the documents, our long range documents, on our website. They're all available on our website. So I can send you links to all of those too.
Yeah.
So you can go in and look at our master street map, our TLIP, our transportation land use integration plan. That also helps inform what we want. So there's livable streets design guides, all of that is under there. So I can send you links to all of that.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Christie, a couple of
Yes.
questions that I've got. With all of these pieces and parts, who keeps out conflicts?
Keeps out conflict.
When you've got one ramp, map, whatever, here, another one over there, they have 2 different reasons for existing. But I cannot believe they could be done without somebody saying, wait a minute, we're saying this on this one and this on that one. Is that your group that,
It's our group that looks at a lot of that stuff. So the master street map gets developed through our group, the 5-year gets developed, the bike master plan gets developed, neighborhood plans, and then we jointly do the CIP with the Development and Technical Services Department. So our group is heavily involved in that. That actually doesn't really happen that often of having a conflict.
doesn't seem to be a problem?
And I wouldn't even call it a conflict, but sometimes we will have an agency that maybe our plans don't show the need for a certain number of lanes, but we do have requests from our partners, and we work closely with our partners with the development of each one of these plans. So every time we do the master street map, we're meeting with all of the cities, we're meeting with the county, and we take all of their requests and their needs and wants into consideration when we're developing that. So if we have a city that says, hey, we want to constrain this corridor to 3, maybe our travel demand is showing 5, we take that into consideration, and maybe we'll look at the parallel corridors or whatever that is. All of that coordination, a lot of that coordination, not all of it, but a lot of that coordination does occur through our group. So it's not done in a vacuum. Nothing we do is done in a vacuum. It's done with very careful and close coordination with everybody involved.
If you would put the capital budget back up for a moment.
Absolutely. There it is.
When you say property tax, that is property tax directly to ACHD.
Yes.
That is not parceled out through the entities that belong to ACHD.
No.
City of Meridian, City of Boise, City of Stars property taxes don't flow through in any way to ACHD. ACHD is a taxing
Yes.
entity in its own right.
Yes.
Okay. Sales tax, how does that work?
I knew you were going to ask about sales tax,
No,
and that's the one. And that's the one I am least familiar with, is the sales tax.
Well, I'm familiar with it. I see it every time I buy something at the grocery
I
store. but
know, I
that's
think I
the
gotta,
limit of my
see,
knowledge.
see, when you want funding questions, those are questions for our budget manager, and I'd be happy to have some, get her in here and explain all of the intricacies of all of the funding sources that we get. I know very high level, I know we get some funding from that, but how it's distributed and what percentages, I don't know what that. I get a number, it says you can program to this number.
Yeah, I know the sales tax to the cities is much more complicated, I think, in Idaho than say Washington. In Washington, their sales tax flows directly from that generated within their entity, like the city of or the county of.
Right.
In Idaho, there's a mix and match formula of some sort that decides how much each of them get.
Yeah.
Based upon the state as a whole, but I probably better stop before
Okay, that's why I
Before I
don't
take it too
dive
far
that
too
deep
wrong.
into that, because that is our budget managers
okay.
like to live.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
You are welcome anytime.
Eric Bowden and Mike Wardle have joined the meeting by Zoom or whatever we're using. Next item on the agenda is the item 4, impact fee capital improvement plan, CIP update. And I'm presuming, Edison, you're going to start that or? Okay,
It's,
ready or not?
I think not. Here we are. So, thank you for having us again, for this update. Last time we were in front of the committee, we were presenting the draft plan that was getting ready to release to the public at that time. I think it was on September 22nd when we presented last time to the committee. The purpose of today's meeting, we're mostly focusing on the feedback that the CICAC wants to provide to the commission with respect to the draft plan. So far, we already went through a 3 comment period, starting from September 25th to October 16th. And we received significant amount of comments, and we'll provide you guys a high level themes of what came from that public outreach. But today's meeting, we want to focus on the CIC's feedback and possibly a letter that the committee wants to, if you so decide, prepare, that will be submitted to the commission. Sonia Mark will give us a high level overview of some of the changes that happened through this update, but nothing new that the committee have not seen in the past couple of years at this point. So certainly any questions welcome. We're here to answer any questions that you might have in any way or form that we can support the ultimate decision that the committee wants to take regarding the letter. So and with that, I'll give the time to Sonia, who's our expert on the process.
A reminder for us before you get started there, this is an action item and the agenda shows at least 2 specific actions that are going to be requested of us today.
So yeah, so ultimately everything funnels into that letter. The action items would be what the committee's position with respect to the draft plan and the impact fee update and the plan, and also with respect to the proposed fee schedule that we're putting forward as part of that impact fee methodology update.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So I won't spend a lot of time on these slides because we have talked about them several times before. But if there is anything that you want me to go into further detail with, please just ask. So again, high level summary of the process that we've gone through to get to where we are today. We started with a best practice review that really took a deep dive into some key policy areas that this committee and the commission, the ACHD commission, asked us to look into. Once we've completed that best practice review, we started into the CIP analysis, and that's really that roadway and intersection future volume demand based on growth, as well as a capacity analysis to see what projects in the future would be necessary to maintain ACHD's current levels of service. Once we identified those needs, we completed some project cost estimates for those. And then that all led into the development of updated traffic impact fees. and the resultant CIP document and impact fee schedule that we presented last time. So, excuse me, moving on. What is new, what is different in this plan? Again, one key policy decision or direction that came out from that best practice review was the commission asking for the draft plan that is currently, or that was presented for public comment, to have 2 service areas as opposed to the single service area that the presently adopted CIP has. So why is this important? Essentially what this means is in the western portion of the county, there'll be a defined set of projects, and those projects will result in a defined impact fee schedule that is applicable only to that service area. And any money generated from impact fees that occurs from growth and development in that area will be able to be applied to the projects in that area. That money generated needs to stay in that area. And the same for the east area. There's a defined set of projects in the east portion of the county, a defined impact fee schedule for that portion of the county, and any money generated from growth in that eastern portion of the county needs to stay and go towards projects in that area, which is different from today.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
This is still up in the air.
So
The ACHD board has not voted and gavelled this into existence. Is that correct?
that is correct. They have not adopted
Okay,
a CIP with this yet. They asked us to go out for public comment with this, and we'll get to what the public comments were. We still expect adoption to be happening later this year. But I think going back to something that Edinson said, we are at a point now where if the committee would like to develop a letter or any specific recommendations to the ACHD Commission, this would be the time to discuss that and provide your input to them before they adopt something on this one way or the other.
I suspect someone might, so when you're through with your presentation,
We'll let the committee
Let-
discuss
let
that.
us know now's the time or whatever. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get through the slides and then we'll
Yeah,
let the
I just
committee
didn't want us
discuss
to go all the way through this thinking that it was saucered and blown.
No, excellent clarification. Again, this isn't new, but we have a series of roadway projects within the draft CIP. We've got a series of intersection projects within the draft CIP. And I think before we get into some of the public comment, one thing I do want to highlight for this group, and now that Mike's online, I will thank Mike directly for this, is, you know, when we are working at a county-wide level, we go into this process with a lot of assumptions that we make. We're using data, the best available data that we have. But there are a lot of nuances within that. And based on some information that Mike and his team have brought to our attention, I want to share with the group that we are currently going through a refinement process of our projects as well as our cost estimates, because there are some things that are in the public draft that I think we can refine a little bit. One example is there are some costs currently in this public draft that when we did a fine-tooth comb review, or I should say when ACHD staff did a fine-tooth comb review of it, we identified, oh, there's about 6 projects that we've included right-of-way costs in the impact fee calculations that ACHD's actually already gone and purchased right-of-way for. Those shouldn't be included in our impact fee costs. So we're going to screen those out. One other thing that we're looking at right now is all of those projects that we identified as right-of-way preservation only. Some of those projects, we applied inflationary factors to their costs. because they weren't triggered until sometime in the future. But that being said, at this point, that will largely be development driven if and when that right of way gets purchased by ACHD. So when we took this finer tooth look at things, we didn't feel it was necessarily fair to inflate those costs more than we really needed to with those inflationary factors. So I think we'll be backing those out a little bit in this approach. And there's a few other steps that we're taking. I don't need to go into all the details, but my point is we are taking a closer look at this, and this kind of public comment period and input we've received has allowed us to do that, which is, I think, a good thing, a defensible thing for ACHD, and an important thing to do. And I will say the result of all of this is likely going to bring down our impact fee eligible costs, and therefore will bring down our impact fees. We don't have by how much quite yet. We're working on this as we speak. But when we come back to you in that November 3rd meeting that we have scheduled, and this is before we go before the commission the next time, we will be presenting that to you and you'll be able to see the results of that analysis. Anything, I just want to make sure you feel like I've covered it at an appropriate level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all of that is not known at this time because Kittleson is taking their first stab at some more refinements. So we don't have any idea on the magnitude of how it will impact the draft. We just know now that we've gone out for public hearing, we've got some public comment, not public hearing. We've gotten some comments and now we have the opportunity to go through and look at the projects more.
And you're not in a position to say it's going to be dramatic or not.
I'm not in the position to say, oh, we think we're going to reduce it by 20% or what. We just don't have that information yet. Yeah.
It's just too soon at this
Yeah.
point.
But I mean, November 3rd is,
It
I
will
think, a
change.
couple weeks from now. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
coming quick. But so we will be reporting back to you very soon
It
on
will
what
change.
that is. Yeah. Yeah. And we want this committee to see that, review the steps we've taken, and make sure you all feel that's reasonable as well before we bring it to the commission. So again, these are the same impact fees that we presented to you last meeting, the same impact fees that went out to the public. We do believe these should be refined down slightly based on some information that we're seeing. We don't know exactly how far that, or by that, what amount that will be yet, but more to come on this. Again, here is a summary of the outreach and engagement, both with the general public as well as with various invested parties that really have to deal with these impact fees, that has gone on since about mid-July. So ACHD staff have had one-on-one meetings with the various cities and Ada County, within Ada County, to present an update on this and get their input. We've had a couple meetings with the development community, the people who actually pay these fees, and have gotten input from them in those meetings. ACHD staff has gone, I think, to about half of the city councils within Ada County so far. There's still a few happening this week and next week, but they're presenting to all of the city councils within Ada County to get input from those elected officials. And then, as Edinson mentioned, we just wrapped up last Thursday our 3-week public engagement period, and we'll be sharing next some of the feedback that we've received through that process so far. Yeah, that would be great, Edinson. Yeah, thank you.
So as part of today's meeting, we wanted to give the committee a preliminary look at the output and the themes that came out of the public outreach. As presented back in September, we had two focus area within the survey back during the comment period, which was to ask the public what were their thoughts with respect to the service area. We presented the single service area and the two service area models, and asked them what was their preference. From 332 responses in the survey specifically, I want to clarify that because we receive additional letters from developer groups, from other entities with respect to this topic, both mostly on the opposite side of the spectrum. But just to clarify that portion of the surveys that we are providing here, over 50%, 54% of the public supported the two service area, while 34% were against that idea and supported the single service, which is currently what's being implemented today. From that service area's topic, we saw comments both from the perspective of the roadway being a single unified network that worked all together, and how that has worked in the past within ACHD and all the projects that we have built within each of one. We receive also comments with respect to two service areas with the focus of the impact fees collected in one area remaining in that specific general area would be more beneficial for the program moving forward. So generally speaking, kind of a little bit split. Obviously, the numbers for respect to the public itself and the survey talks more of a 50% over in support of the two service area, but we're still receiving feedback from the agencies based on the public feedback, based on the city council tours that ACHD is doing, and also from more developers who are submitting letters directly to the commission and staff.
Anderson, a
Yes.
couple of questions on that, and maybe Sonia. Is 332 a good response, or we wish we'd had 1,332? Or is it, we were surprised we got this many, we thought we'd only get 30? I have no idea if y'all, I would like to think that you go into these surveys pushing for a number. How does 332 stack up to what?
There are different perspectives when looking at that number. If we think of it from the public participation in the past for CIP updates, it is significantly higher than previous years, which is a positive. But from the perspective of population of Ada County, certainly it's a small sample of the population itself. Certainly, with the new communication system, we have been able to spread the word more regarding this update and this public outreach process that we just went through. And that could be an indication of how much interaction we have received this year. So it's hard to say. It depends on the glasses that you're using at that time that you're looking at the data. But we looked, this sample has what it is. Some of the members of the public who communicate with, who are interested in this topic, engaged with us and provided this split regarding this.
Was 3 weeks a long enough time to do it?
So here's an interesting.
And again,
Yes.
no scientific
No, absolutely.
part to my question, but it seems short.
Absolutely. And it is an interesting it's an interesting dynamic that we saw throughout the survey lifespan, just because of also the media coverage has helped somewhat the interaction of the survey itself. At the very beginning of the survey, of the outreach, we received a high uptick of comments, which was what we were expecting, and then it dropped until we received another media coverage, and that went out, and there was an increase of comments and survey submissions. So it's hard to say. I think like within 3 weeks is a good time frame based on ACHD communication strategy with the public. I think that's very appropriate. If it stretches too long, typically ends up dying down the type of interaction we have with the community itself.
And I'm not picking on you or ACHD. I ask the same questions of Compass when they run surveys.
Absolutely.
You know, like, is it a good size response, small? What do you think about it? The 332 does not include, Megan, any of the city council comments that
No.
were received.
The 332 is strictly who went to the website and filled out the survey on the website. So as Edison said, we have received other letters. We plan to receive more letters, like we want a letter from the CICAC. If any of you want to submit as individuals, you're welcome to do that as well. So we're still collecting information from other sources as it comes in, and we will continue to do that all the way through the public hearing noticing period. But that number is specifically who went to the website, filled out the survey.
Do you have the total web views for this one? Because usually the
Oh.
web views are another good indicator of people.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear one.
We usually will also have a number for how many web page views there were for each of our projects. And a lot of times they're 3 to 4 times the size of the actual surveys. Because people will go on and look, learn about it, but then they don't fill out surveys. So we usually get really good indication too of how many people actually
Go to.
And I would say that when we go out to the public, we have found that there's a sweet spot usually in a 2-week window to get a lot of engagement. But all of ours will go anywhere from 2 to 4, but 4 is rare. It's usually 2 for the 90+%. The things that we do.
And we're pulling the views. I think it's in the 1,000. It doesn't-
If you get 300 surveys, you're usually like over 1,000.
Over 1,000 views. Yeah, but we're pulling the data, and as soon as Megan finds it, we'll share it with the committee.
Okay,
So from that part, the second question was focused on a general comment with respect to the entirety of the draft capital improvement plan and impact fee methodology. But we felt that we wanted to also provide within the themes of today, some of the feedback we received from other committee members, from committee meetings, not necessarily CIC, but also the commercial developers, the BCA builders, we're building a contractor association. Also some of the partners, and certainly because recognizing that the service area, similar to what we showed today, the surveys reflect a more positive view of the change from the other committees and the developers group. That was not the case in most of their letters. They were in opposition of the change of the 2 service model and prefer a more single service area approach. So improvements were implemented similarly to what we are currently doing based on the need.
I have that information just as of October 12th, so this won't be complete. The survey didn't close for 4 more days. But it said that we had 2,406 page views and 896 visitors. So it would be 896 unique people. So adding on the last 4 days of the survey, I think we probably are accurate that we have maybe about 1,000 unique visitors to the page.
thank you.
So one of the overwhelmingly, one of the biggest comment that we received was the public continued support for the impact fee program. This being the concept of growth should pay for itself. That was something that the public was, as part of their any association comment, was the introduction of like developers should pay for their fair share for the infrastructure that needs to happen within the region. So I think that was in light to in a positive lens that the program has throughout the years and continues to the light that continues to show to the community that it needs to continue to happen. The second item, going back to the second largest item that was commented on, was the impact fee increase, where we received mixed feedback. This is from the community saying that it has been long overdue, this increase, but at the same time, others commenting that maybe it's a little bit too big of an increase, too quickly of an increase. So certainly there was a mixed from both lenses, so it was something worth pointing out. Like I mentioned before, service area kind of mixed feedback between both communities, between the public and the developer group. So certainly that's a big theme based on the changes that we're talking today. And then another theme was with respect to the eligibility of impact fees. More interested in seeing that expanding range of project or more focus on bike, ped, transit, complete streets. A topic that we tackled through this update, but we didn't see a lot of footing for standalone bike ped projects themselves.
And I think I'll just add to that, Edson, quickly, what can be impact fee eligible, what types of projects, that is very clearly and legally dictated by the Idaho Development Impact Fee Act. So we're not saying that those projects in the future couldn't be impact fee eligible if that was the community and policymakers' desire, but that would require changes to our current legal framework, and it would require legislative changes to that Idaho Development Impact Fee Act.
So it continues to be a priority for ACAC, certainly looking outside impact fees, other revenue sources would have to be allocated for that type of improvements to happen. And finally, refinement of roadways and intersection project list. That was going back to what Sonia mentioned as part of the roadway and intersection. Further refinement, specific location that we received feedback, we wanted to look more closely. Certainly, as part of our next steps is to using this public feedback, our objective is to find a recommendation and rework some of the project list and cost estimate that will later go in front of the commission as part of the staff recommendations to them. And then that will be translated into the final draft that will be presented as part of the public hearing later at the end of this year. So any questions?
Yeah, before we move on, so back to the impact fee and increase and service area, you're saying you got mixed feedback. So going to 2 service areas created this difference between the impact fees in the west and the east, pretty significantly. Am I correct in saying that this mixed feedback was more positive in the east versus positive in the west? I mean, because the west is significantly higher, or?
Anecdotally, I don't know if that is accurate, because we did see some comments talking about the west service area and how it was higher. And that wasn't necessarily viewed as a negative, because I think there is some understanding throughout residents in the county that there's more work to be done on the west side. So I don't know that it was necessarily fees are higher, so we don't like them, or we're glad you put the higher fees in the other area.
Okay.
It was kind of more all over the board of some people. We got several comments about the county functioning as a system countywide, and the feedback of it, it doesn't make sense to have 2 service areas because we're one system. So it was really everywhere on the range of what you might imagine in both pros and cons.
So if you were going to put a positive spin on the 2 service areas, what's the best kind of explanation as to why the impact fees are different? And if you're in the west, what are you getting for the higher fees? Why is it higher, and what is there a benefit to the?
You want to go back to the project map for a second? Because that's really the main difference, is just the volume of projects that are needed in the future in the west service area versus the east service area feeds into when you break it out into 2 service areas, there's more cost in that area because there are more future projects. Anything you guys would add?
Yeah, and I think maybe the other thing, and I'm repeating what I've heard or from others, including people in this group, that they see the benefit of having 2 service areas is if I pay impact fees in CUNA, at least I know those impact fees are going to be spent somewhere closer to CUNA than if there was a single service area where they could be spent anywhere in the county. But I think that's different than, that's countered by the feedback that Megan just previously mentioned, being, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are only driving in CUNA or only driving in that service area. So there's really two sides to this coin.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brown.
I sort of have a comment and embedded it in this question about the same thing. I was prompted by some of the conversation I saw online. I think I'm pretty much correct. If we went back to the same system we now have, or one area, that would not change the fact that impact fees will have to go up if we're going to reflect the increase in cost of construction and everything, along with the predicted growth that's coming along. Even if you have one area, impact fees are going to go up quite a bit if we're going to pay, if growth is going to pay for itself. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then that chart that we just saw, all the different sources of income, either you're not going to do a bunch of projects that need to be done, or you're going to do the projects and you're going to be taking money from other sources. That being whatever property taxes and all those other sources, because it's got to come from someplace. But also, if we didn't go on relative to these comments about development money being spent in the area where it's collected, if all of our models that you've used over there, if they're accurate, and the prediction of where the growth is going to be that results in that particular map that's up there, then in effect, if you go to a single area, development will be subsidizing development in the eastern section. If you went to one thing, would be subsidizing projects in the western part. It's just a mathematical calculation. Am I correct?
Yeah, Mr. Brown, one thing as you were talking that it reminded me of, we did see some survey responses that it seemed clear to me that they don't understand that impact fees are only paid by growth. So I think that is a misconception that we have within the county, where some of the feedback we may be getting from existing residents is, well, all these projects are in the west, I don't want to pay for them, I live in the east. But if you're not building a new home or a new business, you're not paying into this source of revenue either way. This is paid for by growth. And when you mentioned the other funding sources we have that Christy showed in her presentation, property tax, sales tax, other, most of those other revenue sources, maybe with the exception of the vehicle registration fee, most of those are paid equally by anyone that works or does business in Ada County, not just the new growth. So that's one, I think the committee has an understanding of that, but it, as you were speaking, that did remind me that I feel like that's still a misconception that the public has.
So I think following on what you said, correct me if I'm wrong, the increase in impact fees is not a product of having two districts. Impact fees, if the board buys into it, they will go up, whichever single district or two districts. It's the disparity that's reflected in the two districts.
Yeah.
In fact, last time they told us, let's take single family houses as an example. If we stay with one district, I think that the impact fee in the western part is a little over 8,000, the new one.
It's
In the
8,900,
eastern part,
yeah.
there it is. In the eastern part, it will be
5,300.
It will be 5,348. But if you went with one district, I think it was like 7,500.
Yes,
So
everywhere.
the fact is, if we're gonna take into account the inflation, and it really has gone up on construction. I mean, it's way above the ordinary CPI that's gone up. Construction is like it's doubled. And we're talking about 5 years, over 5 years of that's kind of going in there, along with the growth that's going to do that. That's what drives the cost. It's just a mathematical calculation.
Mr. Chairman,
One moment. The present impact fees were set, remind me when?
They were adopted in the last CIP update was 2022, but that did not include a wholesale adjustment for project costs and things like that. It was a minor adoption. So they were really adopted back in 2020.
Yeah, based on average data that was generally about a 3 to 5 year range prior to 2020.
Yeah.
So some of the project costs that were included could have been as old as 2015.
Someone was online. Who was that?
Mr. Wardle.
Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Wardle.
Mike?
I trust you can hear me.
I'm glad you joined us. Do you plan to go over the memo that you sent everybody, or do you want it read into the record, or what? How are we gonna do this?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been listening to this discussion, and I want to comment about the growth aspect of it for just a moment.
Okay.
I don't think anybody is objecting to growth paying its way. However, with the impact fee history, and we did an analysis and provided that in written form, impact fee collections over the course of time from 2019 through the 2026 proposed revenue sources indicates that essentially impact fees from growth have been flat virtually this whole 6-year period. Essentially a 2-point-something% increase over that period of time, which suggests that growth is not as rampant as what people perceive it to be. And then if growth is to pay its way, I think that we need to revisit the question of using impact fees that are the growth contribution from, well, the last time we actually, I think, passed a motion to include the rebuild of existing roadways. And then I noticed in one of the slides earlier, talking about the comments back that, the implementation of the complete or the complete road scenario. But I think if we're going to apply impact fees to the growth side of improvements, that we cannot use impact fees to build and rebuild and add facilities that are not part of that growth responsibility. So I just wanted to be on record that I don't think that that growth is not paying its way. I think that what we were proposing to do when we unanimously as a committee moved to include the rebuild of existing facilities, essentially we dampened down the ability for impact fees to pay for additional capacity on a much broader scale than what we're doing, because now we just don't have that type of resource or availability if we're going to go back and rebuild everything when we add that capacity that comes from the stimulus of growth. So just that's all.
Staff, comments?
Well,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wardle, thank you for that reminder, because certainly it's one of the comments that are part of the letters that we have been receiving from the developer community. Certainly that's a theme or point of discussion that certainly was brought up during the comment period. So yeah, thank you for reminding us of that, and certainly that was something that is good that the committee weigh in if they feel strongly that it might be best to return back to that conversation. In this case, recommend the commission that they should not consider the addition of existing travel lane. Certainly, that's something that's still not adopted. So certainly, it's an option to change at this point. So in its current draft. So absolutely.
Yeah, we absolutely can have that conversation. Maybe I'll just clarify what we're talking about. None of these impact fees are going towards addressing existing deficiencies in the system. None of these impact fee projects are going towards maintenance of existing deficiencies. Those types of projects are very clearly not impact fee eligible. And that's very clearly outlined in the legislation that dictates impact fees.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a follow-up then of Sonia? You're saying.
One moment, Mike.
Yes.
What about the rebuild though? Is that?
So one of the items that we brought to this group that I don't believe it was unanimous, but that the majority of the group voted for is what we said is when growth dictates the need to widen a roadway or improve an intersection, that process and the cost to do that isn't just the cost of adding, a second lane or a third lane to an existing roadway. Because when you go out and rebuild a 2-lane roadway into a 3-lane roadway or a 5-lane roadway, that process requires ACHD to rebuild the entire roadway. You can't just add pavement on the outside. You can't just add a traffic signal and lanes. You have to rebuild the entire intersection or the entire roadway. And so we presented an alternative for this group's consideration to say, should it be impact fee eligible? Should the whole portion of that project be impact fee eligible, not artificial reduction in that project's cost to account for the fact that, yes, there may be 2 lanes there today, but really when you do that project, those 2 lanes are taken away and fully rebuilt.
And rebuilding of those is legally impact fee eligible.
Legal interpretation, it has been reviewed by ACHD's attorneys, it's been reviewed by third-party independent attorneys, and they said, yes, you could consider that. It's a policy decision though.
Okay.
We are not saying you have to or you should. We presented that as 2 options for this group's consideration.
Have you, and Mike, I haven't forgotten you, stay with us.
And I will also add, and Mark can correct me if I'm wrong. So if we say we take off the 2 service area decision for a moment. Impact fees today are about $3,400 for a single family house or $3,500 for a single family house. And they would be going up to about $7,500 for a single family house if we don't have the different service areas. Of that jump, that approximately $4,000 jump, the portion of it that is due to this specific policy decision about including the reconstruction of travel lanes or intersections is approximately $800 to $900 of that difference, of that $4,000 difference. The rest is strictly based on how many more projects we have now and what the increase in cost is.
You answered my next question. Thank you. Mr. Ward, your turn.
No, I think I got some answers there. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brown.
Thanks, Mike, for that discussion and point. All I want to do is I want to point out, I think I'm the person that made the motion that we ought to include those rebuilding costs, because when you, as Sonia already pointed out, if you take a 2-lane road, that's the best example of what we do in a lot of these locations. And you have 2 traffic lanes, and let's say we expand it into a 5-lane section. When you do that, it's impossible to do that and not replace the 2 lanes that you already have there. The only example I know of where we've ever been able to was only because we knew it was gonna happen. And so we were able to build their initial section, and that was when we put Curtis down to Chinden. All the others, you have to do that, but I understand what Mike is saying, but in doing that, we're back to the other discussion we had. You would take, and thank you for the information on it being 800 or 900 out of $4,000. So it's about a quarter of it, a little less. What you are saying is when you did a project, the project is being done because of growth, then you would have to be getting that $800 or $900. You're still gonna have to expend it. It would come from those other sources of income that you have. It would have to come by definition, if you're gonna do the project and you're not gonna make it impact fee eligible, if you decide to do that, then you're saying, well, we will be, if we do a project because of growth, it by definition will take additional monies from the other sources.
Tanya, do the numbers on the screen reflect rebuild?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Any,
I will say they do not reflect, though, all those other refinements that I talked about previously in the meeting today, where we said, yeah, we know this can come down more because there's right of way that's been purchased that we didn't have initially, and all those other
Understood,
refinements.
yeah.
Yes.
I get that.
Just want to be clear. Yeah.
Any other questions from members? Okay, I've lost track of who we interrupted with questions, so please pick up.
And,
Addison, looks like
Yes.
it's up to you.
thank you, Mr.
Moving
Chair.
on.
No, pretty much we were wrapping up the presentation, really. I think it was a great time to roll into this, the committee members' discussion. And we can jump into next step at the very end of that discussion, if that's okay with the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so just to kind of recap, what we would like the committee to do is to regroup with all the meetings we've had, the things we've discussed, with where everyone's feeling now, with a little bit of information from the public survey, and some of that information is, what would you as a committee like to recommend to the commission? And we would like to present your letter at the meeting that we will have, where we're reviewing all of the public comment with the commission. So that's on November 5th. So I don't know if you want to vote on things you'd like included, if you want to appoint a committee member to draft the letter, or how, what the mechanics will be of that. But we would like the CICAC to provide a formal comment, as it is, you have a role in this process. You're not just an advisory committee that we give presentations to. You are a body that by law, we want to have your voice heard in this process. So
That almost sounds like you're saying by law, we have to listen to you, but that's good. We'll take that.
And you want this by November 5th?
that would be the best option, because then we can make sure that as they're hearing everyone else's voices, that they're hearing your voice as part of that as well. We could definitely present it at the public hearing, which at this point we're still thinking will be in early December. But we think it would be most impactful if your voice is part of the whole group.
Well, we have voted previously
Yeah,
on both the question of rebuild and number of districts. And those are the two things we're talking about.
and any other comments that you have, we're not specifically looking for feedback on other things, like affordability might be a really important piece there. None of that from our perspective is something specifically we needed to develop our draft. But there are any number of things that might be priorities for you and for the communities that you represent that would be good for the commission to consider.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Wardle once more.
Mr. Ward,
Just from a policy perspective, and we did talk with staff about this a little bit on October 7th. Because of the what I call sticker shock of the increase in the fees, more than doubling, we'd asked the question about, is it possible to do incremental increases? Now, I know going forward, it would slow somewhat, but over the last 5 years, we've maintained essentially the same level, no increase. And so we have not taken the opportunity to do this on a staged basis where the impact is not as extreme as it appears with this current proposal. And I don't oppose increasing impact fees. I'm just saying that doing it in one fell swoop seems a real challenge. So is it something that at least the commission ought to be aware that they might consider a policy where they would allow incremental increases over the 5-year period of the ordinance that's adopted with that fee, rather than just a big jump every few years?
Yeah, so as Mr. Wardle stated, that could be a policy decision that the commission could choose to implement. So if it is the CICAC's recommendation, you could request that as part of your letter that you would like to see them consider an incremental change rather than implementing the full impact fee upfront. I don't believe that's something that we have done in the past. We have adjusted the impact fees annually for inflation, but I don't think we at ACHD have stepped in the full impact fee, but it's certainly something I've seen other communities do.
but I guess to Sonia, your math on this, looking toward a certain number of dollars to do the work, expected this to go in as at one time in the beginning and not staged. So if it's staged over 5 years in any fashion, it's going to impact how much money will have been collected at the end of the 5 years. Is that, you don't look like you understand what I'm asking.
No, I
I know
understand.
exactly what I'm asking, but I'm not.
I understand completely what you're saying. What I'll say is, the impact fees that we presented, they're based on a specific set of projects and the cost to do those projects.
Okay.
So if a policy decision is made to decide, we understand that, but we also understand this is a pretty significant jump in fee that would, take place on a random day and time. And we don't want to do that. We want
A particular day in
a
time.
particular day, not a random, a certain day and time. And we don't want to do that. We want to make a policy decision to more incrementally increase our fees. That is absolutely something I think that could be done, but obviously the projects are still going to cost what they cost. And so that's going to mean ACHD has less impact fee revenue coming in than is needed to do those projects. And so that will affect the timing at which the future projects can be implemented. Yes.
Or it will mean that they, as a commissioner, are making the decision to fund a greater proportion of those projects with other revenue sources.
Yes.
So they could still do it on the same timeline, but they would be saying, well, we really thought we were gonna get 70% from impact fees, but we've adopted a plan that will be 50% funding from impact fees. So the other 50%, we as a commissioner are committing to collect from property tax or other sources. So that's why it is a policy decision, because as Sonia said, the projects cost what they cost. The analysis is indicating they're needed on a certain time frame. So if the commission wants to adopt all of these projects on this timeline, they will need to find the funding source if they
And
don't adopt the full impact
And
fee.
what I'll say, just for that, just so that the picture is complete, is that, you know, ACHD is still going to have maintenance projects they need to do. They are still going to have other types of projects that cannot be funded by impact fees, such as addressing existing deficiencies or the neighborhood projects for bike and ped connectivity or safe routes to schools, and those cannot be funded by impact fees. So if they are taking that other pot of money that can go towards maintenance projects or existing deficiencies and putting it towards these projects, it's going to affect projects in some pool regardless.
Okay.
But that's why they get elected by their constituents to make those decisions about where they want to prioritize.
Mr. Oliver made the mistake of looking at me, and I'm hoping that meant he would like to say
We
something.
we had no,
Apparently not. Okay,
The economy could change too, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
my apologies.
okay, Mike, I'm sorry I didn't hear what.
Back to your point, if we need to take these one at a time, I would move that we sustain our recommendation from June 30th for a single impact fee service area.
I would second that motion.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to sustain our original vote to go with a single service area, please say aye.
Aye.
I heard two ayes.
There was a third over there.
The third? Okay, all right, 3, 4. I believe I'm a voting chairman. Those opposed? Nay. Nay and nay. Folks, I hope you don't think you've wasted your time, but we're back to the same 4-3.
I think last time it was actually 3-2 and an abstain.
No, ma'am.
It wasn't?
It
Okay.
was 4-3 with 2 absent.
Oh, absent. Okay.
And I dare say it was the same 4-3.
Well, Mr. Chairman, then taking the second issue of the rebuild costs, and I do understand Kent has been very correct in the fact that other resources would have to be applied and used in the rebuild. But I would move that we exclude the rebuild costs as being eligible for impact fee input.
A motion, do we have a second?
And that doesn't break the motion maker's heart.
Jared's not here. A second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Any other motions from the members?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Brown?
I'd ask Mike if he's gonna have a motion about deferring the timeframe of impact, putting the impact fees in. Are you not gonna put a motion in on that?
Deferring, you mean in terms of incremental increases?
Yes, that's correct. 'Cause
Well, let me just
without that, then the way that it's being proposed, they would all go into effect one time.
I understand that, and I appreciate the opportunity to at least comment. I'm not sure that I think it's something that ought to be factored into future impact fee updates, the CIP updates. I don't know if it can be done in one fell swoop, but I think it ought to be considered because I have a suspicion that the commission itself will find it difficult to make this kind of a jump. So I would support an incremental increase program if there's a way to do it, knowing that it's going to potentially delay or require additional or other resources.
In the sense of a discussion, there's not a motion in front of us. Kent here again. I'm very strongly in favor of other taxing ideas. The user pays, in this case, the idea that growth pays for what it causes to the system. And so I have a bias in favor of that. So in my opinion, if there was a motion or something like that, or a comment, my comment on this, I think we should leave it like it is because of what we already said. If you're going to proceed with the CIP, with the improvement plan that is inherent in this, then I don't think you should be taking additional resources out of the other sources. It's sense have to redo those 2 lanes that I already described. It directly comes about as a result of growth.
Mr. Chairman,
Otherwise,
Mr.
you
Chairman,
just leave it a 2-lane road.
Mr. Chairman, I have to disagree with Mr. Brown's statement. If in fact those lanes need to be rebuilt, it's a factor of existing conditions, not the growth conditions. So
absolutely, I agree. In that case, you wouldn't be doing it. But the reason that the ones we're talking about, Sonia already pointed out, the law that put this into effect forbids you to do it if it's existing. And the best example of that I can think of, I represent Garden City, and the biggest projects that are going to be done in Garden City on our arterial is on State Street. None of that is eligible for impact fees because it's an existing deficiency. And so the streets that we're talking about are being redone because of growth. So I don't think, I already said what I would say.
Mike, I disagree with you. You're a developer and I only used to be one. I think ACHD would find it very hard to make the grades alone work when you're adding lanes to an existing road. You end up getting into wider, you get into walls, holes. I think to me, it's a grade thing to make a proper road in the end, trying to keep 2 existing lanes where they are, even if they were built brand new last week, to make it work. But that's the engineer in me, which I'm not, so there.
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that from the perspective of those existing lanes, that is a system, and if they need to be rebuilt, I understand that. But it also suggests that there's a deficiency in those, certainly not up to whatever the standards are now. I'm not going to fight the issue going forward. I just wanted to be on record that I don't necessarily agree that we ought to use the impact fees, which somebody said earlier, $800 or $900. Well, no, that was on the rebuild at $800 or $900, but $800 or $900 is still money. Thank you.
All right. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, staff and consultants, the next question is, who writes a letter? Do we write a letter? And if so, who writes a letter? I would suggest that whoever writes it, and somebody's got to tell me if this can be done outside of a meeting, that the other members have an opportunity to edit it or to question how it's written. It's not just be written by one or two members and sent, and the other members see it well after the fact.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the chair and vice chair be directed to prepare a draft for review by the remaining committee members.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
When I comment,
No, yes, I have to have a second before we can talk about it.
I'll second it for the effort of commenting.
That works.
All right.
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
All right. I'm gonna suggest the following. It doesn't necessarily require that we give them a letter. I think that we could send them our minutes. They're gonna be provided our minutes along with our recommendations. And that I don't see the necessity for providing a separate letter that would come from us, other than if they were provided our recommendation on what we voted on in favor of. And then you wouldn't have to go through the process of having somebody here assigned to, whether it be the president and the vice president or anybody else, if we just provided them what we had put out in the minutes, and the staff can do that.
Is that in the form of a substitute motion?
I would just put out a comment, but sure, I would make a motion that we do that. That rather than putting a letter together, for what we do is we provide them the recommendation that we as noted in our minutes.
Second.
Okay, is this an amendment to the original motion that you made, Mike?
Yes.
And the second's also involved in this, so that he's agreeing to this, so we would vote the second first. Discussion of the second motion.
Mr. Chairman, could I, discussion on the second motion. So, I guess my question is to the staff, and that is, what would be the most effective way to get feedback from us? If we just provide you with our minutes, is that going to be the best way, or is this letter really a summary of all of our discussions over the past months? And just what would your comments be as terms of the most effective way we can provide feedback?
Yeah, that was really how we envisioned it, is as a summary, because we have discussed this over the course of several meetings. And the other thought I think that we both had too is we have received a lot of letters, so you'd be providing comments in the same way that others have been providing their own comments. But if you prefer to just provide your minutes, you do have it recorded what the votes were. So I think either way is appropriate. It's just how you'd like to proceed.
And then just one other discussion item, and this is more on the content of the letter, and I don't know if this is the right time to do that, or is there be another time to do
We hadn't got a letter yet.
that? I will hold off on it.
May not have a letter.
Yeah, we'll hold off on it.
I have a little comment. I have a little reluctance regarding the minutes. I did not attend the last ACHD board meeting where our previous minutes or meeting was presented. But I did have someone on city staff that did a synopsis of that meeting. And I later talked to one of the commissioners to make sure that the synopsis I got was correct. It was not told that it wasn't. There seemed to be some discussion from some sources that were not quite as I remembered the meeting being. So I'm a little leery of going through that again. If the minutes were just written and the members had an opportunity to review and approve the minutes as written, then it would probably be okay that they be presented, here are the minutes, without any editorial comment. I guess what I'm saying with that, Mr. Brown, is I think a letter might be a more sure way to present what we really have done. On the other hand, I'm not real keen on being part of having to write it, but that's something else.
Mr. Chairman, and I would say you have a higher probability of that occurring by trying to create and circulating it and getting versus going off official voted on.
You must know I'm leaving the country Thursday morning.
I have no idea. That might make sense
Is that true?
before taxes.
Oh, I think that makes it more likely, in my opinion, that we should vote this current existing motion.
All right, we have two motions. The second motion gets voted first. The second motion was to submit the minutes as our position on the two items. Actually, the three items that have been voted, one of which died for lack of a second. All in favor for doing it that way, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, nay, whatever.
Yep. Okay, what are we, 3-3? Let's do by hands. All in favor of the motion to submit the minutes only, please raise your hand.
We're gonna just.
Minutes only.
And minutes.
Minutes.
This is the second motion.
The second motion.
Do it by minutes.
1, 2, 3. And those opposed? 1, 2, and Mike was opposed?
Yes,
3-3.
You didn't vote.
I know that. Hey, it's not over yet.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Thank you, though. I'll vote for minutes only. I see our inability to get two people to jump up and say, I can't wait to write a letter. So the second motion passes, which takes care of the first motion. As far as I'm concerned, having everything there is to know about Robert's Rules of Order somewhat. So.
And I'll just remind you all again,
There you go.
if anyone does want to submit a letter individually as a member of the
Certainly
CICAC,
do.
you're welcome to do that.
Edison, where are we?
Mr. Chair, we just want to remind the committee regarding our next steps in the process. Certainly, we're entering into the last stretch of the update. We hope, certainly it's nothing, it's set in stone until we hear the adoption votes, but certainly our next steps right now is we're going back in front of the commission on November 5th with the findings of the public outreach and staff recommendation. Then we have another meeting with the Commercial Developer Advisory Committee on November 6th. We'll come back in front of the CICAC committee members on November 10th.
We
actually
have that scheduled for November 3rd.
Earlier they was said November 3rd, which is,
Oh, is it November 3rd?
It is November.
November 3rd, correction in the record, November 3rd then.
I would prefer the 10th because I'm back by then. Is there a problem?
As long as everyone's available.
Anybody know that they won't be on the 10th?
It is a Monday before a holiday on Tuesday. Veterans is on Tuesday.
What on Tuesday?
Holiday?
Veterans Day holidays on
That's an
Tuesday.
FYI.
Well, I cannot take a break, I cannot take time off, I guess.
I'll be available on the 10th.
Out
I
there.
have another commitment on the 10th.
Okay.
10th is good for me. I'm good on the 10th.
Everybody's good, but you on the 10th
Yeah.
and me on the 3rd. I guess. Is this third good with everybody else?
I would be virtual on the third. I would be virtual on the third, but I can do either.
So what do you wish to do, member?
Is there an importance to doing this prior to November 5th?
Not any longer.
No.
What are your thoughts on it, Edinson?
No, I think, I would think we will want to know the minutes will be reported to them at the work session.
Yes.
Yes.
If we meet before that, nothing's changed from today. Correct?
I agree.
By then, we will have a draft of the changes that Kittleson's working through now, but
Just on the dollar numbers.
Yes.
so we
And we'll
can.
be able to report to you, here's how much they've been adjusted to address some of these refinements that we talked about earlier.
But you're telling us that they will go down.
Yes, but the
Just
changes
unknown how much, but
Yes.
they're not gonna go up.
they're not
No.
gonna go up.
No,
No. We wanna keep our jobs.
well, there would be nothing to include in them to have them go up at this point. This
Okay,
is,
that's fine.
yeah,
Just so that they wouldn't go up to the point that somebody that had an opinion earlier would say, whoa, that's too much. I won't change my vote. So if they're gonna only go down, whether it's $1 or $1,000, that's what it's gonna be.
Yes.
I would think meeting after the 5th, when the commission has had their work session, would be more appropriate for this group than to meet virtually tomorrow and do this all over again.
Agreed.
I'm seeing nods around the table.
I won't be here, but I'm fine with you guys meeting on the 10th.
Everybody else okay? 10th it is.
On November 12th, we are aiming to release the draft plan ahead of the December 3rd adoption hearing. Certainly, that could change depending on the commission direction on the 5th. But our goal at this point of time is November 12th, so we can meet the statutory requirements for the adoption hearing. Finally, December 3rd, adoption hearing for the draft plan.
Get it done in spite of all of ourselves.
That,
That's it?
that's it.
Commissioners, anything else?
If I could just make a comment, and that is, my feeling is that we've spent a considerable amount of time and energy on impact fees, which I'm not saying it's not important, but the overall CIP, which we did provide feedback on early on, we haven't discussed that as much, and by that I mean the specific projects, the budget around those projects, the timing of them. And we're in election season, and I can tell you, in at least the city that I represent, transportation, traffic growth it's a hot topic. And all of the candidates running for city council are hearing it loud and clear that it's a high point of interest. And so as I think about our work here and our feedback on the CIP, I just want to make sure it reflects that. I have my own personal opinion, but I want to make sure I'm representing more than my personal opinion, that I'm really representing city staff as well as just the overall citizens of the city. So is that going to be a part of, how's that feedback going to happen? Is that going to be now in the form of these minutes that will go to the ACHD? Or I guess I just wanted to kind of throw that out, and I don't know if the other members of the committee are hearing this or not, or if this is just unique to.
You want another crack at it?
Maybe. I mean, I guess I'm saying I want to make sure that the feedback I'm providing currently really reflects what is going on in our city. And I feel like I've provided some months ago, again, on the projects themselves, the timing of it and the
Right.
budget. The feedback that we provided months ago, which again, may be being modified now based on that we're in an election season, maybe not. Is that sufficient in the form of these minutes to get that feedback to the ACHD commission?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the minutes will reflect the committee's major comments at the time of each of the meetings. As of right now, I guess one thing that wasn't fully clear is the range of the meeting minutes. Is the committee desired to provide all the minutes from the start of the project to now? Or for
No, no, no.
or just
We
the
were-
action items?
Sorry, we were doing the minutes of this meeting,
Okay,
but regarding Stephen's point, I felt like the earlier discussion of projects and timing and dollars was more of a presentation and a committee asking 3-4 questions and it moving on. So staff and consultants from a mechanical standpoint, could we discuss it in more depth on the 10th, or would it not work because we're beyond that?
We can discuss it at any point before the public hearing, because at the actual public hearing, the commission could say, we want to remove this project and that project based on feedback we've received. But we would prefer that we know those things are coming sooner. So the best case scenario would be if we make changes like that, it's already in the draft that's released for the public hearing noticing period. Because if there are significant enough changes that they make at the last minute at the public hearing, by law, we would have to then notice it again and do a second public hearing. So if that's how it goes, that's how it goes, but we are trying to work to, button everything up as early as we can if we see things coming. Some of the letters that we've received have mentioned specific projects and specific concerns. So if you have anything like that that you would like to review, it would be very helpful to us to receive that in a letter so that we can show it to the commission, we can discuss it as staff, we can discuss it with Kittleson, and move into our next meeting informed by that.
And does that need to happen? Would November 10th be too late for that to happen?
It would be ideal if it's before the November 5th meeting, but November 10th ultimately would not be too late. The commission could still decide to take that into account, but it could lead, depending on how significant the changes are, it could push us back on the adoption if we have to adopt a new draft.
Mr. Chair, in clarification on the comments are welcome at any point to the committee before the November 5th or later. Certainly, it is a matter of if the recommendation comes from the committee as a group, right? So if at the November 10th, comments come in and the committee agrees on those comments, that would be later communicated. It will later be presented to commission based on it, and for them to consider and give direction to staff. But I would say, like, if it's something that you feel like would be more in line with the city interest and want to submit it from that perspective, I think you're more than welcome to provide a letter from that point of view as a citizen, and that's fine. I would just clarify that if the intent is to submit it as part of the committees together, that's certainly the November 10th would be an option to have to prepare that type of additional feedback. Yeah.
So I guess I would just say, that's a good point, which is the feedback can come directly from the city that I represent. If we want to have something that comes from the committee, then maybe the November 10th, just have it on the agenda for us to perhaps discuss, and maybe there's something that we're facing that would be, the, for the wider group. So let's just have it on the agenda for November 10th.
Oh, would you like it just to be a discussion of the projects within the CIP?
Yes.
And I agree. I think maybe to agree with Edison that a single letter, because asking me to opine on the corner of Walk and Don't Walk in East Boise
Right.
is like, huh? I don't even know where it is, you know? And the same thing's true of a couple of things that Meridian's city staff is telling me that they would like to see tweaked in it. But would, you know, Boise have an opinion, or Star might, because they're kind of closer to them. But, you know, to do it as a group strikes me as a lot harder than the individual representative members to say, now look, you're proposing this at this particular corner, and this is why you ought to do it this way.
Yeah, it's a point taken. And
But
I
we
do
can
remember
certainly
that.
put it on the agenda for the 10th.
Yeah.
To give the group an opportunity to see what is being talked about.
Yeah. Let's do that.
I will just add too, and this kind of goes back to Christie's presentation from earlier today. There are many projects that individual cities and the public would like ACHD to do and be part of their 5-year implementation plan. Those projects may or may not meet the much narrower criteria of future demand from growth versus capacity that meets a performance standard that makes them an impact fee eligible project that should be in the CIP. So those are two different things. I will just highlight. And if you want me to go into more specifics about that, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah, the various entities have real direct input into the 5-year plan. Whether or not it works or not is a whole nother question, but they have very direct input.
Yeah, every single year with the 5-year, we go out to each agency,
Yeah.
each of our partner agencies, and they provide us a prioritization list. And that's broken into roads, intersections, and then safety and compliance. So they will give us a list from 1 to however many they want to put on their list.
The ACHD staff puts that together and makes soup out of it. I was thinking you were talking about the longer range plan in terms of what's currently shown on it, and we don't think it either goes far enough or why would you be doing that type questions?
That actually was what I was discussing.
Don't muddy the water with the facts. Let us wander in the wilderness here.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I would just add, because so many of you do have good communications with the cities or the county that you represent, if you want to send them a reminder of some sort to let them know we are still looking for feedback. As Sonia said, we have done most of the city council presentations now, and we met with the county commissioners as well. And have we received any formal feedback from?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't believe we've received any formal feedback. So they may be talking to the commissioners directly. They may not be planning to submit anything, but if you'd like to remind them that we have this meeting coming up, if anything trickles in, that would be great.
Any idea if there will be any weight given to where the feedback comes from? Will reaction from CICAC, the development community, the cities, general public, how do you weigh all, or do you weigh all that?
The commissioner has expressed interest on listening to the advisory committee's feedback. They always ask, whenever we go in front of them with projects, what type of feedback we receive from the committees, whether it's the CICAC the pedestrian advisory committee or the bicycle advisory committee. And they're interested to listen what the volunteers of those committees have to say regarding each of our plans, projects. So I would say like it's a strong weight to that feedback that they receive from the committees.
And city input?
Oh, as well, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
in that regard, could you put that schedule back up again? So I can make sure if I'm gonna follow up with Garden City, I need to know for sure what I'm talking about. So, November 5th. Just leave it up there, or you can leave it up there if that's all, and then I can write it down after we're done. Okay,
I can email those dates out to you as well.
all
I can email out those dates and information to you as well.
that would be great, and yeah, you can, and in fact, we're gonna now have the CICAC on November 10th, so it's correct.
Correct.
That would be great if you could do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
strikes me as a need for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Oliver, second.
Second.
Mr. Brown, all in favor, please say aye. Thank you, one. Thank you all. Thank you, staff, consultants.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Listeners up in the room. You usually come in that way.
I did